Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Metropolitan Academy. Today, we are going to be going through how to use generative AI to help with grant funding. This comes off the back of a lot of conversations that I've had with entrepreneurs, charities, organizations across the board that are trying to leverage generative AI to be able to save time, effort, and energy in being able to get work out the door, get more funding, and to be able to support their organization. Now, this is obviously a really useful part for generative AI, really useful challenge. But I want you to be able to notice that every tool we're going to be doing today has a free version. There is opportunities to be able to leverage free tools to be able to do this. You don't need to be particularly experienced in generative AI to be able to make this work. I'm going to walk you through the process of how I would go about this. There's other ways of being able to do it as well, but hopefully as we're going through, it's going to give you an insight into how you can utilize these tools in a way that's useful and meaningful. So you spend less time doing the menial and spend more time working on the meaningful aspect. So let's get into today's workshop. And what I would like to add as well is I can see all your comments and questions being able to come through. So I'll do my best to answer them as we go through. Definitely we'll have space at the end as well. But if you have any comments, questions, then add it to our conversation for the day. So let's get into it. Now, I think when I was going through putting this session together, one thing that I wanted to be able to start with is people find it really difficult in the first instance to even find grants. Where do I find this information? How do I find the grants that are available to my organization? So I'm going to start with this little process to be able to get you through. So the tools that we're going to be using today are ChatGPT and Perplexity. They do much of a muchness, as it were. They work quite similarly, but what I want to be able to do is show you some of the examples and differences in results as well. So the first place that we are going to start is in Perplexity. I prefer Perplexity for research over ChatGPT. I find that you get more distinguished results from it. And particularly if you're going out to the web to be able to try and get stuff, I think it's a really useful tool for being able to start with that. So I've got a prompt here that essentially goes, hey, this is my organization, the Metropolitan Academy. I'm actively seeking funding sources for ongoing projects and initiatives. Can you provide me with a comprehensive list of those of grants that have been posted that are relevant, that are accepting applications, and that we would be eligible to apply for? So this information is going to help us with assisting and identifying potential funding sources to further our mission and achieve our goals. Now, I've ticked, you've got two options here on Perplexity. Same thing with ChatGPT. We could be putting it into the same one. You've got search and you've got deep research. On Perplexity, it says pro and deep research, but essentially they're performing the same functions. So your deep research here is almost like sending out an intern to be able to go and do a task for you. Let's say you were going to give this task to an intern. You would go, hey, I want you to come up with this report, go into a lot of information. This is a really useful way of being able to get an AI to be able to help you find those results. So to start with, I'm going to talk through a little bit about deep research this is going on. Now, deep research can take anywhere up to half an hour to be able to come through, but normally it's between 5 and 10 minutes to be able to get things going. But I'm going to talk you through a little bit of it, and I have one prepared in advance as well. So the whole point of deep research now is it's going to look through all of those external websites, look for relevant funding opportunities. And what you can see here is a bit of its reasoning in the models that it's doing. So it's trying to tell you how it's coming up with the results that it's looking for. So it's going to go through, this is the process that it is doing to be able to research. And that's how reasoning models work. Essentially, they are ones that are checking their own homework, as it were. So what you can see here is it's going to be identifying potential resources, potential funding sources that align with the organization's vision and mission. And we can see now that it's searching through lots of potential opportunities, websites that it might find that it has this kind of tech information on it. So we can see all of the information that it's going through in order to be able to get these results. Now, as I said, this could take up to 5, 10, 30 minutes to be able to do it. So in an Art Attack fashion, if you grew up in the UK and you ever watched Art Attack in the 90s, they would always say, here's one that I've made earlier, which was a great way of being able to wait for the glue to set and everything like that. So in Art Attack fashion, here's one that I've made earlier. What we can see here is a list of funding opportunities that could be relatable to the Metropolitan, which is what I've used as an example. Now, obviously, you'd put your organization context in there as well. One thing you want to think about when you're doing this is maybe you're looking at it from an organizational perspective, maybe you're looking at it for a specific project. So it just depends on the context that you're giving it in order to be able to get the results that you're looking for. So there's lots of information on here about the eligibility, where it's looking, what kind of sources, what kind of funds you can apply up to. And I've got all my links that are available here as well. So if I wanted to be able to go and click on any of them, really easy to be able to do. Once I finish today's webinar, I'll also put together a blog article with all of the prompts that I've used as part of this journey. So if you want to be able to access them, you'll be able to do the same as well. So we've gone through and we now go, great, I have found a bunch of resources that are going to be useful, or funding sources that I could go and apply for. That is our step one. Step two is we are going to go through on ChatGPT to be able to do this, because it's going to be the one that people are probably most familiar with. And we found our funding source. We're going, you know what, I want to be able to apply for X, Y, and Z funding at this organization. How do I start that with ChatGPT? Now, I've got the Pro version. What I want to be able to do is kind of give you some context of what I'm going to be doing. We're going to look through the different models. I'm going to explain the advantages and disadvantages of each of them. Also, I want you to remember that when you're putting information into the free version of ChatGPT, that information, it can be utilized to train the model, stuff like that. So that's basically the trade-off for the free version, is that you're training the models as you go through. But we're going to look through the Pro version and some of the options that we have available here. So what I'm going to do is jump onto our ChatGPT. We're going to go through, I can see that we've got a comment here, so I'll quickly answer that as well. I use Perplexity already. I was hoping for something a bit more niche. Now, one of the reasons that I'm going through these tools instead of, custom built tools or anything like that is because they are accessible to everyone. And also, you don't necessarily need anything more niche to be able to go and do this. The whole point is that this is easy, free, and accessible to the majority of people to be able to do it. The approach that we're going to be taking is niche, but the applications are more generic. So I'm going to work through what people are already utilizing rather than talking through a new application or anything like that. So we have a few different models available on our ChatGPT here. We have the 4, the 4.0, the 4.5, 0.1, 03 mini, and 03 high. So the 4.0 is your basic, great for most responses to questions. It's trained on a vast data set. It's designed to come back with an answer that's quick and easy for you. We have the 4.5. Now, not everyone has access to this. It's on the research preview at the moment, but the 4.5 actually recently passed the Turing test, which is to say that people who were talking with 4.5 weren't realizing that they're talking to an AI system when they were going through it. And that's because the 4.5 is a really expansive model, but it's designed to have a very empathetic approach. It's designed to mirror human language much more accurately than other models are. So it doesn't measure intelligence. That's, the Turing test doesn't measure intelligence. It measures the ability to sound and feel human. So really good if you're looking for doing something that is a more empathetic writing. Could be really useful if you're looking for something that's a little bit more human in its approach. Has its advantages, has its disadvantages. One of the things that I would say at the moment is because it's in research preview, you only get a certain quota of being able to use it. So I think it's something like 20 prompts every 10 days or whatever it is. So you do need to be aware that you might run out as you're going through, but really useful for contextualizing these things in a way that sounds more human. Now, the 0.1, great, it's the initial reasoning model, which essentially is being able to go through and go, yep, I can check over my homework. but it's been superseded really by the O3 Mini. This is really good if you're looking for logic and reasoning. And where I would use this in your grant proposal is particularly if you're looking at things that may be more financial, that you want to have more analysis over. This is where the O3 Mini comes in and has a huge amount of advantage. Then you've got the O3 Mini High, which is more aimed at coding and logic. So really good if you're trying to be able to create an app. So probably not as relevant to the work that we're doing on this one. Now, I would say you probably want to choose between the O3 Mini and the 4.5, but I'm going to choose the O3 Mini to be able to go through this. Now, the first step that I'm going to take on this application is I'm going to go through and essentially create a detailed profile of my organization. This is a technique called priming. And what we're doing is we're going to prime the model with information about our organization. So this is going to include things like the mission, vision, core values. Now, you could upload these as separate documents, or you could get it to look through your website to be able to do it. Now, I'm going to go for option 2 there and get it to look through my website to be able to create this first bit of priming. So all I've done is go, please create a detailed profile of my organization. Let's give it the website here. Where possible, include mission, vision, core values, everything like that. And what I want to do is need to make sure that I enable the search button here. So this means that it's going to be able to check over the website. So the reason that priming works is basically everything that you have in a context window in your chat is something that it can utilize later on. And because we're going to be answering questions on an application, what we want it to be able to do is have a huge amount of information to be able to start with in order to answer those questions better. So the technique is called vectorization in some ways. We're training the model to be able to respond with different weights and balances compared to what it would do normally. So we can see that it's looking through the website. It's had some issues potentially being able to do so, but that won't necessarily be a problem. We'll have a look through and see where it comes up with. But this little context window here tells you how it's checking over its homework, basically, how it's trying to figure out the answer to the question that you're answering it. So I can see that it's hallucinated. And this is a really good example of where essentially if a model doesn't have the answer, it's going to try and make it up. And in this instance, it wasn't able to access the website. So essentially, it's created something that looks, sounds, and feels real. And I'm actually kind of glad that it came up in this way, because it's really important that what you bring to this conversation, what you bring to the work that you're trying to do here is critical thinking, creativity, and being able to kind of look through that curiosity bit of it as well. So you need to have that focus of being able to go, this doesn't look right. I'm not going to trust an AI 100%. How an AI works is it's only ever producing a statistically probable outcome based on the information that it was given. So that doesn't mean that it always gets things right. It's essentially a formula. It has no context or understanding of what it's trying to do. It is a mathematical formula that it is trying to create. So I'm going to go back into this prompt and I'm going to try and run it again and just see if it is able to read the website this time. If not, I'll show you another way that we could go about this. Now, people ask me what reasoning means all the time when we see these models reasoning. What it actually means is it's just being able to do kind of iterative prompts of being able to go, well, this was my approach. Is this the right approach? Would there be anything that I would do differently? So at the moment, I can see that it's struggling to be able to read the website. Not a problem at all whatsoever. So we could go on to a tool like turn websites into text. And I use this all the time, particularly if it's having a problem reading a website, is we can take a website and we can take all of that information and we can turn it into text. Oh, I need to give. Cool. Now we can see that it's got all of the text from the website. We can copy that into our dashboard. And I'm going to go back to our chat window. And all I'm going to do is edit this a little bit to be able to go create a detailed profile of my organization. where possible, include the guidance, governance structure, things like that. I'm also going to go, here's the copy from the website. And you might want to do this on a few pages if you're looking for specific information. So I'm going to give it not just the main website, but I'm also going to go to the About Us page as well. And I'm going to convert that into text. So hopefully, with all of that information, that's all that generative AIs are really doing when they're reading through a site as well. They're not, they don't have any understanding of it. It's just taking all of the information that's there. So I'm going to go for send. We've got, while it's in that, I can see there's a comment there. Is there a replay? Yes, so this link that's being recorded at the moment, you'll be able to access via the same thing or via YouTube, and you'll be able to go back and re-look over any steps that you've missed so far. So don't worry, as we're going through this, you don't need to be doing it at the same time. You can always go through the replay and have a look as we come back through. But thank you for the question. So leaving this to kind of start doing the priming, start learning about my organization. And this is a great way, if you're going to start doing an application, you essentially want to start training the model on your organization to be able to start with. What we can see is it's coming up with a detailed profile about the organization, what the values are, how it's structured, all of the kind of things that we might want when we're looking at being able to do a grant fund. So that's step number one. Now, step number two is there's an extra thing that I think is useful to be able to add to this. You know, this is an added extra, but it's a feature of something that I've created because I use this stuff all of the time. Is if you go onto the Metropolitan, go to community, go to AI assistance. We have an agent here that I've created, which helps create you a free brand strategy. Great if you're an entrepreneur. I spent a lot of money on being able to get my brand strategy created. This obviously does it in a lot quicker time, and it does it for free as well. So I'm going to show you how this works. But essentially, it's able to produce a brand strategy just from being able to look at your website. So I'm going to provide it with a website to scan. I'm going to give it this one. Ask it to create my brand strategy. And this little bot is something that I've created to essentially create a brand strategy. Now, it normally takes about 5 minutes to be able to get everything pieced together. And once again, in an art attack fashion, I'm going to go, here is one that I've made earlier. So this is the output of what that produces. Really good for being able to also help train your AI on your brand, your information of the organization, giving that consistency to your responses and answers. And it's able to do this from your website, or if you don't have a website yet, any other information that you give it. If you're using social media profiles, it doesn't work. Lots of social media profiles don't allow scraping for bots and stuff like that. But if your website does allow that, then it will allow you to be able to create this. So this is going to be really useful. Have things like empathy mapping and stuff like that. And essentially, we're going to be using this to help train our AI on being able to give us the responses that we're looking for. So now I'm going to go back to my chat window, and I'm going to upload that brand strategy as well, just some extra context for it to be able to understand. So now just giving it some extra context to what we're going to do. The next step that we're going to take is we want to be able to train our AI based on the organization that we're trying to apply with a grant for. So the reason that we're doing this is because in this vectorization of this model, what we want it to be able to do is it understands your organization really well now. What we want it to be able to do is understand the organization that you're applying for's organization really well. So for the example I'm going to be using for this, I'm going to go with Unlimited. Unlimited are an organization that support social enterprises with grant funding, particularly small, medium enterprises with being able to kind of get off the ground. So it's a really good example to be able to work with the kind of thing that we're doing for this. So I'm going to go to it and I'm going to go, I want you to be able to look at this organization, which is Unlimited. And I want you to be able to go and find out everything about this organization. So let's say I want them to review their website, their priorities, their values, the comprehensive detail of their organization, any criteria that they might have, special interests. So when you're going to be applying for things now, you're going to essentially mirror the organization that you're applying for, the organization that you're applying on the grant for. So I'm going to basically give it a bit of information on that organization. Sometimes you'll see ChatGPT does this. It's a way of being able to improve the model, but it will give you the option between different responses to be able to work with. So you can always see which one you think is better or which one comes up with the best results. It's much of a muchness normally, but hopefully a really useful tool if you are getting a comparison. You can go for the one that you prefer. So with Unlimited, as it's searching through its website, I'd expect it to be looking at whatever priorities they have, the different projects that they utilize, the different funding that we could apply for. And we're going to essentially use that to help mirror some of their language back in the work that we're doing. So what we can see is it's generated a really detailed bit of an overview, finding out about the organization, what their mission is, what their values are, what's the core work that they're working with. Really useful for us being able to make sure that we're coming back with the results that we want when it comes to applying for them. So I'm just going to go with the response that's pretty much ready to go. Great. So we now have a lot of detail on our organization. We have a lot of detail on the organization that we're applying for. Our next step is that we might the criteria that we're looking to go for, we might want to add any attached knowledge documents about that organization or specific grants that we're working with. So let me just turn off those notifications. So I'm going to just click on this first one. This might be if you've got normally when you're looking at grants and applying for grants, there will be probably some kind of document or criteria to be able to work with. So I'm going to go into their awards, look at the different types of awards that they might have. And I don't think Unlimited has a downloadable one, but we could potentially say this is the criteria that we're looking for. And you'll be able to potentially download criteria. So with this one, it's not really necessary, but I'm going to show you how to be able to do it anyway. So for this, I'm just going to go and download this page as a PDF, just to give you as an example. Save as PDF. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload it to the model here. Just this could be any information that we have on the grant. What I'm asking this in this prompt to be able to do as well is to essentially look through all the criteria. And when I'm telling it that the next step that I'm going to take is I'm going to ask it questions based on the grant criteria that's there. So I want it to be able to respond as if it's my organization to ensure that we're getting the responses that we're looking for. And I want it to be able to reflect the priorities of the grant provider and ensuring that that kind of is compelling and it meets their funding goals. One thing that you can always add to the end if you don't want it to start trying to go too far off or start getting started before you've asked the first question is something like, do you understand this prompt? Yes or no? I like giving it a very specific question to be able to reply to, and yes or no is a great way to be able to do this because it understands that the response needs to be, does it understand, rather than get started. Cool. So it's gone great. Yes, I understand this prompt. Now, what I've got here is a list of questions that I know are on an unlimited grant. So if I go into here, I should be able to copy and paste that question and be able to go, I want to essentially you to write the answer to this. Now, you might want to give it character limits and stuff like that. Quite often, organizations do have character limits on it. So I'm going to ask it to go for less than 1,000 words. Here's the moment of truth. One of the joys of facilitating training on something that only produces statistically probable outcomes is you're never 100% sure that you're going to get the answer that you're looking for, which is obviously what you really want from any demonstration. So what we should be able to see, what it's done, and I can see why it's done this, is because it's answered it as if it's unlimited rather than as if it's the Metropolitan. So what I'm going to do is give it context here to say, I need you to answer like you're part of the Metropolitan. So let's go. You are, let's go, please, sir, on behalf of the Metropolitan applying for an unlimited grant. And then we've changed our prompt, so it's a bit more specific now. At the moment, beforehand, it was trying to apply for an unlimited grant as if it's unlimited. Now we've given it a bit more context to go, you know what, you need to be focusing is applying like the Metropolitan to unlimited. So we can see that it's started to understand some of the ways of being able to go around that now. And we can see that the question that it was answering is, what's the social and environmental issue that you're addressing? So now we can see that it's broken it down into the step-by-step of what we've asked it to be able to do. You know, the challenges that we're facing, that kind of stuff. One thing you can do, particularly with your more advanced models, you get better consistency with it, which is, you can see at the moment it's writing in American English. Unlimited is a UK organization. So I can go, simply go, please, with UK English spelling. Great. So now we're just going to make sure that our Zs are S's and stuff like that, because I'm based in the UK, and that's going to help me with the writing that we're putting together. So that's what an answer to question 1 that we have there. We can put it in. I'm going to go for ones that are a little bit shorter now, but let's go on to our question 2. Same context. Who might benefit from your venture is the question that we've got. And I'm going to go put in less than 150 words. Maybe that's a bit too short. Let's go 250 words. So you can see we've got a question there. Will this lecture be available on LinkedIn so we can refer back to it? Yep, you can just access it on exactly the same link that you're on at the moment. So if you want to be able to come back, re-go over the step-by-steps that we've done and follow along with me, then that will be available to you. But thank you for the question. Great. So now we can see the question or answer to be able to reply to it. And this is obviously what a lot of grant applications are, is being able to match up your organization with the organization that's doing the grant. Let's go into our next question for our final one, just as a bit of an idea. And I'm going to go with describe the intended impact for the individuals who benefit from the work that you're doing. So this is just building on the questions that we've asked already. Now, for the next one thing that you often get when you're doing grant funding is they want to know, obviously, how's the grant going to be utilized? Where's that money going to be spent? How do you intend on being able to put this together? And this is often a question that people get panicked about because they're like, I don't know, I just want the money. I'll work out what I'm going to do with it afterwards. But one of the ways I think is really useful for being able to do this is you can do it within a prompt within ChatGPT as well. So if I'm going to jump into here, and I'm going to go to my prompt box. So in this one, I've gone, look, I'm going to be going for a £5,000 application bit. I want to be able to split it into the areas of marketing, advertising, administration, resource development. Please essentially distribute these funds in a strategic manner that is going to support the ongoing success of my venture. Because we've trained at the moment, it's very knowledgeable about our venture. So it should be able to take our expertise and understanding to be able to move this forward. So I've asked it to put it into a table. If I haven't, I'm going to. Please put in a table in the chat window. Sometimes if you're asking it to be put into a table, it uses something called Canvas, which is almost like opening it up in a document. And I prefer things to be in the chat window. So that's just a preference thing there. So what we can see now is it's come up with a table that can work through the resource allocation. It says it explains why it's doing it in the way that it's doing it. Really useful for me being able to now go and copy and paste that onto our application. So that will hopefully get you through doing submissions for grants a lot quicker, a lot easier. I know it was a bit of an intense go through, but actually these step-by-step approaches are very much a case of if you were working with someone, you would think about these questions. And the way that you work with generative AI, I would definitely consider thinking about it. It's almost like you're emailing somebody to get an answer. If you put the information in, you're going to be, the more context you give it, the more information you give it, the more likely you are to get the results that you're looking for. There's nothing intelligent about generative AI. It's only a statistically probable outcome. So we're essentially trying to re-weight these balances and statistics in our favor to get the outcome that we're looking for. What I would love for you to be able to do is come onto our platform, Metropolitan. The whole point of why I set it up is to give people information, easy access to be able to utilize generative AI in order to be able to move things forward in their career, move things forward in their organization. It's free to be able to sign up. If you go to our sign up bit, you can go join free. We've got a bunch of resources, short videos, applications. If you're wondering about what applications to utilize, we've got a list of the ones that we recommend as part of our tech stack and ones that you might want to be able to utilize as well. Support guide. So if you're looking at being able to start learning some of this stuff, you can utilize the applications and support that we have here. And yeah, essentially we're setting up this community in order to be able to help people to move along their generative AI skills. So we'd love to have you join us as part of that. Thank you so much for joining us today. If anyone has any further questions, then let me know, and I'll connect you to everything that's going on. But I'll give people just 60 more seconds in case there's anything else that people want to add. There's a bit of a lag between me talking and the stream. So if anyone has any further questions, then do feel free to let us know. I can see that we've got some thank yous coming through on the chat. Reese, more than welcome. It's always useful. One of the things when it comes to generative AI is, progress isn't progress if it's always the same people who benefit from it. So we want to be able to make these skills accessible to a whole range of different audiences, and use it as a way to augment your capability and hopefully save you a lot of time as well. Get you into these grants and hopefully applying for more, getting more money into your business as well. Question there from Victoria: will I be sharing the prompts that I'm using? Yes, what I'll do after this is I'll put together a blog article by the end of today on the Metropolitan. So if you go to where it says resources, go to blog. By the end of today, I will have put up a blog here with all of the different step-by-steps, the way that I've done it, linked to this, and the prompts that I was utilized. So hopefully that will help you on the journey as well. But thank you for the question. And we've got some, positive feedback, which is fantastic. So pleased to have you all with us here today. I'm going to wrap up now, but thank you so much for your time, energy, for sticking with me. And hopefully we'll see you at the next webinar very, very soon.